Hello and welcome back. This episode is part of a mini-series focused on improving your personal effectiveness. So far we've covered time optimization, assertiveness, and now we're on the stress management segment. Last week was stress management part 1. This week is stress management part 2, and it's all the practical science-backed strategies to help you manage your stress and take back control. So we're going to be exploring, first of all, how your language and inner dialogue can literally rewire your mindset. Then we'll look at the way you hold your body changes your hormones in seconds, so how to adjust that. And then we'll look at how some of the daily simple habits, from feeding the birds to eating dark chocolate, can literally hack your neurochemicals and boost your well-being. I've put a series of great free resources together, one of which you can see on screen now. It's the time generator, so you can free up to, well, actually, it's over 500 minutes. Just head over to either the show notes or see the link on screen right now to grab your copy. Now, the benefit of downloading the time generator, or you can download the journal, is that you will automatically get signed up to the Brilliant Leaders Notebook, which is basically a summary of notes from this podcast. So if you're the kind of leader that likes to take a deep dive on subjects and wants to take the learning to the next level, then I can highly recommend downloading that and signing up for it. Finally, this is a live recording from a leadership development program, so it's packed with practical exercises. So feel free to either pause the video with the rest of the delegates or complete the activities at the end when I cover the usual pause, reflect, act, and I'll get you to reflect on all the activities that you've been listening to. So let's go. Hello, it's your leadership coach, Estelle Read, and host of Optimising Leader Brilliance, the place for calm, confident, and strategic leadership. Stay tuned to the end for a mini coaching and reflective practice. Find out more about my services by heading over to estelleread.com. Okay. We're going to get into some more practical things that you can do to reduce your stress. Now, what I will say is these things are sticking plasters. So in other words, these are techniques that you will use if you don't go to root cause and clear it up. But they're also just general well-being techniques, things that you can do to relieve the stress from the stress bucket, which I'll come on to in a moment. If we think about stress as a state of mind and what it means when we talk about a state of mind, and I'll break it down into 3 things, but if we change our state and change any of the following 3 things, we can change our state of mind. So the first is thinking and language, which we're going to come on to. This is how you as leader, as coaches, traditionally will help your team members challenge the blocks to their change by challenging their thinking and language. We can change the way we feel by changing our physiology. And again, I'll explain the science behind that. And then finally, we can change our state of mind by changing the neurochemicals. It's why people take antidepressants, for example. But I'm going to share how you can create your own positive, happy hormones and do this for yourself. So if we come to that stress bucket analogy, so if we think about us at our best, everything is functioning the way it should be. So we're not overly stressed, we're not too relaxed, we are at our optimum, and our body is functioning the way it should be, and we are in this balanced state of homeostasis. And then you get up, you trip up over the dog, or like me, had to clear up dog vomit. this morning. And then maybe you get an angry message off a client from an email. Then you get stuck in a traffic jam. And then you're in a meeting and someone challenges you when you're presenting a proposal. And all of a sudden you've got an inner trigger as well. So your sense of being is being challenged, and they've hit on one of those old childhood triggers that's making you feel stupid, like an imposter, like you don't belong, that you don't know enough, that you've made a mistake, all of those triggers. And then before we know it, our bucket is overflowing and we are not behaving in a logical way. So what we have to do, we have to take layers out of our stress bucket by putting our foot on the brake, going back to take your foot off the gas, put your foot on the brake, and take alternative action. And that's what I'm going to be sharing with you in a moment. So I want you to think about, we can create better states of mind by thinking about our mind and body being like a factory. So at one end, we have input. In the middle, there's a process, which is our unconscious mind. And then at the other end, we've got output. And our output is our state of mind, which then affects our performance, our behavior, our decisions, and our actions. So, for example, this is a daft example, but hopefully you get where I'm going. Many years ago, I was in a stressed state of mind and I ended up buying a car that was totally impractical. I think I was having a midlife crisis, if I'm honest. I went from having a 4x4, my daughter was about 3 years old, to all of a sudden I was turning 40 and I wanted to feel young again. So I bought an Audi TT. Totally impractical. I convinced myself I could put the back seats down, still get all the equipment in the back. So stress state of mind resulted in a poor decision and action. Okay. It's the same if you're presenting. So next time when we meet, if your state of mind is a bit stressy, then it will affect your performance, your behavior, decisions and actions when you come to present. So how do we rectify that? We have better quality input. So we are exposed to all sorts of things. Some things we can control, some things we can't control. If, let's say, for example, many years ago, I was out walking the dog and an accident occurred at the end of our drive. I can't control seeing that accident. That's part of life. But what do we expose ourselves to? What negative things do we expose ourselves to that might make us feel anxious, nervous, apprehensive, or affect our state of mind? You can either put the answer in the chat or you can unmute yourself. So what do we see that might create a negative state of mind? It's probably part of your morning routine. So what kinds of behaviour might make us feel anxious or stressed? Checking the emails and the news, that's it, yeah. And that would be an example of seeing a behaviour. So is that within our circle of control? Can we do anything about the news? No. So all we can do is be aware of the things that we can control. One of the things you can control is what you choose to fill your brain with first thing in the morning. Are you going to be scrolling the news or looking at negative comments on social media? Or what could you see that's positive as an alternative? You be in charge of the phone, not the other way around. So I think I might have already said, I don't allow any notifications on my phone. I check my phone. So I have my check-in that tempts twice or thrice daily. So I'll check at the start, I check in the middle, and I check at the end. I don't have pings going off. I am in charge of the phone, not the other way around. And yeah, so what we expose ourselves to in the morning, we have a kitchen come living room, and our snug area overlooks the garden. And one of the things we do in the morning is we have a pet pheasant. And he comes along and we feed him. And I know that produces happy hormones. So it produces the love hormone, which I'm going to come on to in a moment, taking care of something. I put birdseed out for him. He has his own special bowl, put some water out. And we watch all the birds come in the morning and it's magical. I stroke my dog, we hug as a family, and all of that sets you up for a positive start. So it's not too dissimilar to the things that we hear. Often when we're seeing things, we're also hearing things. Now, I can't remember whether I've spoken about this before. So drains and radiators, have I spoken about that before? People in your life, drains, radiators. So a radiator is someone that when you hear them and when you see them, you feel really positive and happy. So an example of that, as I say, I had my friend to stay this weekend, and we kept leaving each other voicemails on old-fashioned text, because I don't do WhatsApp, as I say. Left her a message, and even before she had arrived, I was crying with laughter. She's just so funny. In the end, I had to message her and said, I'm going to have to stop messaging because I'm laughing that much. I'm going to wake Mike up in bed because I was laughing. So that's an example of a radiator. A drain is somebody who drains you of energy. They've always got a problem. They're always blaming and complaining. They're always criticizing other people. They're always the victim. So when you spend time with these people, you feel drained of energy. Can you relate? So choosing who you spend your time with, who you're going to see and hear, and having it's another reminder to have boundaries in place. If someone is sapping you of your energy and your joy, think about how much you expose yourself to them. Touch. I use the example of having a jacuzzi. The bubbles, they relax my body. Our clothes. So at night, I like to go from my formal wear to putting my pajamas on. So after I've been speaking to you, I'm going to take my daughter to pottery lessons, and we're on a pottery course. So I will put my leggings on, a scruffy top, because that will help me relax and transition from work mode to leisure mode. What we taste, the taste of chocolate. I'll talk about chocolate in a bit. Maybe a glass of wine on a Friday night. All of these things can help us change our state of mind. The things that we smell. So lavender is often associated with relaxation, for example. Or maybe you're out in public and you smell the perfume or aftershave of somebody that you knew before, and it transports you back to that time. Now, what we're going to be working on is the language you use with yourself. So in conversations, but also your inner dialogue. And we're also going to look at your physiology, so how you hold your bodies, because that is also going to impact your state of mind. But it's also where we choose to focus our attention. So we get more of whatever we look for. Now, optimists, they live 19% longer because they are looking out for the positive things in life versus the negative things in life. So that's why gratitude has got so much good press, and studies are showing that actually it helps our bodies as well. It helps us to be healthier, it helps us to live longer. And that's where we are grateful for the things that we have got as opposed to what we haven't got. So let's move on to thinking and language. The thing about the brain is it finds it difficult to process a negative. So if I said to you, don't think of a blue elephant, don't think of a blue elephant, who thought of a blue elephant? Yes. If I said, don't take this the wrong way, which way are you going to take it? You're going to take it the wrong way or the right way. I'm not being funny. That's a British saying, I'm not being funny. Oh, but you are. So we try to negate the thing we're trying not to be. So this might relate to you instructing your children, don't spill your drink, they'll spill their drink, versus keep your drink in your cup. Oh, I don't want to lose my temper. What's about to happen? You're about to lose your temper. Or I'm not going to eat that cake. The problem is you've already programmed your brain, that input, you've got a representation of cake and your brain is having to go, don't think about it, don't think about it. It's an inefficient way of thinking and being. So to set your brain up for success and to improve your state of mind, it's important we focus on, so remember we get more of whatever we focus on the desired positive outcome. So for example, you might say, instead of don't take this the wrong way, you might say, hey, can we talk? I need to give you some constructive feedback, versus don't take this the wrong way. So what we're going to do is we're going to go from inner critic to what I refer to as inner captain, because we all have an inner critic. And they reckon, can you do a little thing to help me out? And that's to simply hit subscribe or the follow button now, wherever it is that you're listening. So that's maybe on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple, because that will help the podcast get found by other people. And that then enables us to keep going because we continue to keep growing. What would be 5-star amazing though is if you could also leave a review. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your support. 80% of our thoughts are negative. So we've got 20% positive thoughts. So this is the inner critic. And 95% of our thoughts are exactly the same as they were the day before. So this is a really positive reason to journal, so that you can be aware of what are the thoughts that you are having repeatedly, which you can change from inner critic to inner captain. So the idea is we use less of these types of beliefs, but we use more of these types of beliefs. So instead of saying, so you're feeling stressed, I'm stressed. So it's the equivalent of if I'm working with a client and I'll say to them, what's the goal for this coaching program? And they'll say, I don't want to be stressed. The outcome, what are they going to get more of based on that theory that I've just shared with you? The brain finds it hard to process a negative. If they're saying, I don't want to be stressed, what outcome will their brain give them? They're going to get more stress because the brain gives you more of whatever you focus on. So useful belief, I'm going to focus on being calm. So you acknowledge, yes, I feel stressed, because part of dissipating a state, when we bottle up our feelings, it's trying to strike a balance between acknowledge the feeling, yes, I feel stressed, and I'm going to focus on being calm. Next, I'm helpless would become, I can do this. It always happens to me. So these are statements in relation to feeling stressed. To, I can handle it. As human beings, it is amazing what we can actually handle. I think sometimes we don't give ourselves credit for the things that we can handle. I'm miserable or depressed. One of the things we say in our family is when we have a down day, we say feelings don't last forever, because they don't. They come and go like a bad smell. Is that fair? Because, for example, do we laugh forever? No, it comes and goes. But also things move on, but we can keep reinforcing that state of mind, because actually an emotion only lasts for 90 seconds. What turns into a feeling, so depression, for example, or feeling miserable, is ruminating over that feeling. So one of the things we can do is, yes, acknowledge the feeling. It's okay to feel sad, depressed, lonely, alone, bad, acknowledge that feeling, but then, and can I just say, the small print here is depression serves a purpose. I think I've said it in previous modules. If you're experiencing genuine loss of anything, it might be status, it might be a relationship, it might be an actual bereavement. Depression serves a purpose. But one of the ways in which we can help ourselves is to be self-aware when it comes to our state of mind, and to be aware of how we are talking to ourselves when we feel low. And there are things that you can do to change your mood and to lift your mood. I'm going to share with you from a scientific point of view what those things are in a bit. This used to be one of mine. So I used to stress about the things that I had said or hadn't said. And I would say things like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. I would even go back to the person and say, oh, you know, that conversation we had yesterday, I didn't mean to say that. What I meant to say was X, Y, and Z. And some people would look at me like, what are you talking about? I can't even remember the conversation we had yesterday. So my counter statement for that was when I used to worry about, because I used to worry about saying the wrong thing. That was my trigger. But once I'd havened it, I didn't have to use this mental strategy. And the mental strategy was, what's said is said, what's done is done. Because it's said, isn't it? Can't take it back. I've said it. But the long term, so this is the sticking plaster, saying these things to ourselves. The more permanent solution is to haven away the fear, the trigger that caused it in the first place, which, as I say, will be linked to childhood. So we've got an activity. So we're going to this activity, developing an inner captain. So we all have phrases that we like to use. So words that we always use, oh, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I can't do this, whatever they happen to be, identify what those phrases are. And then, because you're already trained as leaders, coaches, identify what your positive inner captain phrase could be. So let's say, oh, I feel really tired, I'm exhausted. Okay, acknowledge that. And then your inner captain phrase might be, okay, I'm going to focus on eating healthy food. I'm going to finish on time tonight. And I'm going to make sure I get a good night's sleep tonight. That will be the counter phrase. So any questions? Just spend a few moments doing that. So take 5 minutes to reflect, and then we'll come back and review what you've found or review some of your phrases. So the next section is we're going to learn about how we can affect stress through our physiology. So there are some poses that actually create more stress in our body. So the first one is the huddle. So this is this one, holding our bodies tight. So hugging yourself. The next one is the protective sit. So that's legs crossed. Again, we've got tension going on. And so just basically, there's lots of tension going on in the body. And then this is a really popular one, I feel for the children of today, is the phone, the hunch. Again, that's causing stress in your body. And then finally, we've got the self-touch, which is, and our king does this. He touches the back of his head whenever he's feeling anxious. So touching face anywhere like this. Again, that's sending a message to your mind that we're anxious. And I'm going to talk about the mind-body and the body-mind connection in a moment. Now, what it's actually doing is it's increasing your stress hormone by between 15 and 17%. But also the confidence hormone, testosterone, and both men and women have it, reduces by 10% as well. So we are damaging how confident we are by the physiology that we hold. So for any TEDx fans, You may have come across, if you haven't, I can really recommend it, Dr. Amy Cuddy's TEDx talk on fake it till you become it. So the way that we hold our bodies, so there's this bi-directional connection. So mind influences body. So we've been looking at how the language of the mind influences what happens with our body, but also our body influences our mind. And what she identified through her studies is that by using power poses, this is an example of a power pose, we can make ourselves more confident, feel more powerful, but also reduce the stress hormones going on in our body. So it involves, you're not going to stand in a meeting, are you? Or sit in a meeting like that. That just isn't going to work. To be fair, when I'm speaking in person, I will catch myself doing that pose like that. You will have seen it so anything that expands across your chest will help you to build testosterone, which will make you feel more powerful, more confident, and negate this cortisol that's going on. So, for example, we're going to make this really practical. So if you were in a meeting, rather than using that pose, which would look strange, what you can do is put your elbows on the desk. So you're looking to broaden out this part of your body, and that will have the same effect. Or you could put your elbows on the arms of a chair like that, but you want to sit upright and you want to broaden in this particular area. So that's the Wonder Woman pose. The other one, you'll have seen people in meetings like that. Have you ever seen that one? You are making testosterone, you are making yourself feel more powerful in that moment. Now, in their study, they identified that holding one of these power poses, so the other power pose is I think they call it the winner's pose, like that, when they're on a podium. That also produces testosterone and is going to reduce your cortisol. Now, they reckon you need to do it for 2 minutes. Now, I'm all for practicalities. Again, you're not going to sit in a meeting like that. But when you come to do your presentation next session, what you can be doing is either sitting like that, sitting upright, broadening out your physiology, or you pop off to the loo and you do it in the privacy of your cubicle for 2 minutes, either that one, or you can put your hands on your hips for 2 minutes, and that will give you a testosterone increase by 20%. But it's also going to reduce your cortisol levels, which is your stress hormone, by 25%, which is cool, isn't it? How simple is that? So that's one example of how we can influence our hormones, our neurochemicals. Let's now take a deeper dive into some tangible action steps you can take that will take a layer out of that stress bucket that I mentioned before. And remember to put any actions on your stress management prescription that I mentioned earlier. So, dopamine, this is the reward chemical. Now, unfortunately, we experience this, for example, when we're scrolling on social media. Mobile phones are addictive. They increase our dopamine. But also, it is, we were talking in the previous module about having a to-do list. Ticking off items on your to-do list will give you a hit of dopamine. It will increase motivation, learning, but also we experience pleasure. So examples include, we talk about, so a classic time management book, I think it's called Eat the Frog. And it basically means do your most difficult task first in the morning. And that will give you a huge dopamine hit if you complete that first. And it can be simple things. You make your bed. We have a rule in our house, you make your bed in the morning, empty the dishwasher, just little simple things that set you up during the day. And then taking time for that self-care activity. Who here Who here carries out self-care activities every day? Anyone? Oh, good. That's great. What do you do? Riding. Oh, fabulous. Now we're getting to it. That's great. Eat food, especially enjoyable meals. So we have food boxes delivered, so we're guaranteed healthy food. We have, so there's things like, I don't know whether you have them in Europe, Fresh, Hello Flesh, that's awful. Hello Fresh, Mindful Chef, all that kind of thing. We've got chocolate. Yeah, chocolate is shown to be, especially dark chocolate, shown to be good for you. What else? Celebrate a little win as well. So acknowledging your successes. So last week, I have been working so hard on this podcast to the point where I wasn't enjoying it. The other week, we were driving to my brother-in-law's 60th, and I'm in the back of the car still working on the podcast. I had to work when I got to my mother-in-law's, and then I had to work on the Sunday. And I said to my husband, I am not enjoying this anymore. This is hard work. And it was at that point I thought, do you know what? I've got to get a virtual assistant to help me out. So that's what I've done. Hopefully they'll be starting next week. But this was my little win. It's all that hard work, it has paid off, and it was number 7 on the podcast chart. So it was just like, oh, I got that boost I needed. So I celebrated that win. Next neurochemical is oxytocin. So this is the love hormone. So it's the cuddle or bonding hormone, and it enhances empathy, trust, and intimacy. So little examples, play with a pet. I've used the example of we feed the birds in the morning. I stroke our French bulldog, cuddle animals. Sadly, we used to have an Italian Spinoni. He died in October, but he was such a cuddle monster. We miss him a lot. So that social connection, make it a routine to hug people when you leave the house, whatever, if you don't already. Holding hands, playing with children, but also acts of kindness also will give you that oxytocin hit. So making it practical for work, offer to make that cup of tea, offer to help someone out, as long as it's not going to stress you out. Make sure you put your own oxygen mask on first. And then the next neurochemical is serotonin. So this stabilizes our mood, and it's great for well-being and happiness. And sunlight exposure, this is really good first thing in the morning. So again, one of the other things, if I feel like my sleep routine is out of kilter, instead of sitting in the snug in the morning, I'll go and sit on my swing seat out in the garden. I'll get some sunlight in my eyes. No wearing sunglasses. Your body actually needs the sunlight to hit your retina. And what that will do, not only will it help with your circadian rhythm, so help you to sleep, but also, as I say, it's going to make you feel better as well. And then we've got physical activity. So we've had horse riding on the list. Anything aerobic will also give you a serotonin boost. Havening gives you a serotonin boost. And then we've got nature and mindfulness. So anything, there's so many free apps out there. And I was also reading today, so one of my favourite activities is paddleboarding, which I'll come on to in a sec. But it's a really mature person sport. It slows down the aging process, but it also gives you all sorts of positive hormones, which I'll come on in a moment. So endorphins, these are our natural pain killer. So laughter, connect with your funny friends, watch a comedy. These are all things that you are in charge of, changes that you can make. And then apparently dark chocolate, so back to what I was saying earlier, or spicy food will also give you an endorphin hit, along with the runner's high, any vigorous exercise. To bring things to a close, in summary, how we manage our stress. So this is paddleboarding. I knew I got the stats somewhere. So paddleboarding, for anyone that's close to water, we produce endorphins, serotonin, and dopamine. And it reduces, I knew it was good for me for some reason, but I couldn't figure out why I loved it so much. It reduces cortisol. And that's because we're near water, apparently. Yeah. So remember, we've got to take our foot off the gas, put our foot on the brake, and to engage in some of these activities that I've just shared with you. Be aware of those stress triggers, internal and external, and then change what you can control, let go what you can't. And then when it comes to reducing those internal stress triggers, and if you want to build self-confidence and belief, then use a technique like self-havening. And you've got the technique instructions in these training notes. But for really big trauma or for significant amounts of work with a havening coach. If today's episode resonated with you and you'd like havening support from me to clear your stress triggers, check out my Resilient Leader program, Shine, where I do all the heavy lifting for you. I do the havening work. I find your stress triggers and we get rid of them. Simply book a free discovery call and we can see if we're a match. You can find all the links in the show notes. Scan the QR code on your screen right now, or just head over to estelleread.com and you can find a link to book a 15-minute call there. I do have something called the Resilient Leader Coaching Program, Shine, which focuses specifically on that. And then you want to empty your stress bucket by changing your language and thinking. So developing that inner captain rather than an inner critic. Adjusting your physiology, remembering those power poses so that you produce less cortisol but more testosterone so you feel more confident. And then hack your neurochemicals with any of those suggested activities, but do take action. So I've got loads of resources as well. So I've already got the link to my book. That will also include detailed havening instructions. You've got my podcast as well. You can listen to the birth order episode that I spoke about. If you want to talk more about havening, you can book a free discovery call on that code there. Before we sign off, I'd like to invite you to my quick reflective practice called Pause, Reflect, Act. As your leadership coach, I'm here to help you translate today's insights into personal growth and your next steps. Answer the prompts that follow in your journal or notes. Alternatively, you can access my complimentary journal and self-coaching tool in the show notes or head over to estelleread.com. Here's this week's podcast coaching questions. Number 1, inner critic versus your inner captain. What's a phrase your inner critic repeats most often when you're stressed or under pressure? Write down your inner captain's counter statement. What would you say to a friend in the same situation? Number 2, your morning inputs. What are the first things you expose your mind to each morning, and are they filling you up or draining you? What one change would you make to start your day with a more positive input? Number 3, drains and radiators. Who in your life right now is a radiator and who is a drain? Are you giving equal time and energy to both? And what boundaries might you need to put in place to protect your energy? Number 4, hacking your neurochemicals. Looking at the 4 happy hormones, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. Which are you currently getting enough of and which are missing from your daily routine? What one small action could you take this week to boost the one you're lacking the most? If you'd like to be notified when the next episode drops, remember to subscribe. If you found this episode helpful, please share it with someone who might benefit. Finally, if any of these topics have sparked your interest and you'd like to work with me, you can apply for a free discovery call at estelleread.com. Let's see if we're a good fit. You'll also find plenty of free resources there. I'm Estelle Read, executive coach, speaker, and best-selling author, and this has been the Optimising Leader Brilliance podcast. Thanks for listening. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. Please consult with a qualified professional for any specific advice related to your situation.